Hey everybody, Jeffrey Powers here, and you are on part 3 of this 5-part series for Wirecast. Today what we're going to do is we're going to set up your encoder settings, and we're also going to set up how to broadcast, get ready so you can stream your show or record your show via disc, and that's all on this episode of the Geekazine special media feed in Wirecast 5-part series. And of course, this 5-part series is brought to you by Citrix and GoToAssist Express. Go over to gotoassist.com/podcast, or if you're on gotoassist.com, just click the Try It Free Now button, enter in that code podcast, and you'll get 30 days on that great software to be able to support people on a PC side or on a Mac side. You can do it anywhere, anytime. You don't even need to be in the same city or the same building. They just go up to a website, they put in a 9-digit number, and you have access to their screen. You can let them have access to your screen. You can control their screen. They can control your screen. It's a great tool for IT support. Not only IT support, but also training support. You can train people on how to use programs like Wirecast. So it's a great program. Don't take my word for it. Get that 30-day free trial. Make as much money as you can, and then, the regular $69 a month price wouldn't be that bad. So that's over at gotoassist.com/podcast. Remember, podcast. Gotoassist.com. Support smarter with GoToAssist Express. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks a lot. Of course, if you haven't checked out the first 2 episodes, the first episode we did the introduction to Wirecast. On the second episode, we went and we set up a scene in Wirecast. So you had your lower thirds, you could do your green screen effects. You put in the microphone effects. Of course, I was on a different microphone, and I've been trying to move around a little bit to show you the mobility of using Wirecast. You don't have to be in a studio. I mean, this is not a studio. This is my living room. I could go downstairs and actually be in my Geek studio and do some of the recordings from there. You see them. If you go over to Geekazine.com, you see some of the recordings that I do. So you can use this in a pro setting. You can use this in a regular setting at home, just recording your thoughts and making it a little bit more professional. As you saw the lower third there and then gone, I have that set up that way. I can put in an intro and I can put in an outro. But what we're going to do now, because you need to take it to the next step, and that next step is, how do I record it? And this is kind of a touchy situation because it's set up for default numbers, but you might want to record it in a higher definition. You want to be able to record it in a 1080p maybe, if you've got the right functionality in your machine. You want to be able to stream this up to Ustream or Justin.tv or Livestream or another streaming, or just record it to disk so you can post it up later on the internet or save it for yourself. That's what we're going to talk about today in this part. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch over here. There we go. Okay, so now I moved everything off the screen. Of course, you see me down in the bottom corner here. And we're going to go, and you see the Wirecast. This is all the Wirecast functionality, and hopefully this won't ruin my recording as I do this. So if it does, I'll just have to do it again, I suppose. So, but anyway, so you have all your main file menus, which we've gone through before. We want to go over to Window. The first thing we're going to show you how to do is set up your encoder, because this is the important part. This tells you if you're going to be recording in high definition or 4:3 standard definition. So we want to go to Encoder Presets under Window. That's the same if it's in Mac or PC. It's still the same thing. Now the encoder preset is how it's going to get encoded. And just like with an audio file, you have a WAV file, you have an MP3, you have different types of formats, OGG formats, so on and so forth. And you set that from there. So the encoder preset gives you many different options. You can choose from a flash option, you can choose from an H.264 option, you can choose from an MPEG-4 option, whatever you're trying to record to. I mean, if you're going to record something and you know that people are going to be watching it on their smartphones from a 3G connection, then you want to have a lower look. If you want to put it onto YouTube, you want to have maybe a higher look to it. And if you want to do a highly professional video using professional video cameras and so on and so forth, you want to go all out. Now, once again, this is all dependent on what you have in your machine. If you have a video card that can only do 256 megabytes worth of video memory, chances are you're not going to do high definition video. You might do some standard definition video. But if you have a really good card, like for instance this MacBook Pro, it's an i7 processor and it's got the 1 gigabyte of DD5 memory in it. The standard 256, but it goes up to 1 gigabyte of DD5 memory. So I can do a pretty decent amount on this computer without it starting to fry up. Of course, the fans will start to kick in big time, but it does do the job. So, all right. So we have many different options. We have from flash, whether you can choose a 16:9 flash or a low bandwidth flash, which would be in 4:3. You have H.264 in a LAN to a modem size. Then you have LAN MPEG-4. From high end to low end, and then of course you can change all the presets and then restore the factory preset from there. So like for instance, let's say I went to a flash preset. As you can see, all the settings have changed in that preset. It's telling me that do I want the output to be flash? Do I want it to be QuickTime? What do I want the video encoding to be? What's the width? What's the height? What's the frames per second? Frames per second is how you see me. A standard webcam used to go at 15 frames a second. You had movies that were at 24 frames a second. Then you have 29 frames a second. This can go up to 60 frames a second, depending on how you have it set. And in this case, I could actually set it up to 60 frames a second, so I could get higher detail from my movements. So I could actually take this into an editor and then slow it down a little bit, and then it looks a little bit more clearer as you go. Of course, it's not going to go to something like 300 frames a second, so you could do really cool slow motion. But if you need to do something higher quality, you can go up to 60 frames a second, which is pretty cool. The average bit rate. Now, this is where a lot of people get confused. The average bit rate is each frame takes a bit rate, and that alternates. Like for instance, I'm looking at my statistics right now, and it's saying it's constantly going at about 2,300 kilobits per second as I'm going. I have because I have it set at 35. It means that when it hits 35 kilobits per second, it doesn't go any higher. So in this case, it says if you record at 400 kilobits a second at the most, which is it's kind of low for a higher definition. You want, for a higher definition, if you wanted to go to a 720p, you want to have at least 2,000 kilobits per second, or technically 2 megabits per second. I go at 3.5 or 3,500 kilobits per second, which is a really nice video in the end for what this camera and what this computer can do. You have the keyframe. The keyframe says that after so many frames, it puts down a marker, so it knows it can kind of try and sync up things a little bit better. You have the time code, which is not set here, but it says every 30 frames. If I checked that, I wanted it, I could have it. And then underneath the part, I don't think you can see here, I can't raise it up, you basically have audio encoding. It asks you if you want it to be in stereo, if you want it to be, what's the bit rate. Usually for audio, high-end video with audio, high-end video would have about 128 kilobits per second. Low-end video, 64 kilobits per second. And then, of course, the sample rate. Do you want it at 44 kilohertz? Do you want it at 48 kilohertz? So that's in the flash medium bandwidth. Let's move over to LAN, which is what I normally have this set as. I have this set as, let me close this out and go back in so you can see my settings. I have this set at QuickTime. I have it set at an H.264 format in color, 1280 by 720. I have the 4:3. Of course, you have 4:3, which is the standard square definition, and then you have 16:9, which is rectangular. And I wanted my stuff to be 16 by 9, so I don't lock it to 4 by 3. I can choose the quality. Right now it's set to medium. I can say 30 frames a second, but of course I can change that. This will change. I believe it'll go to 60 frames per second depending on how you have the settings on it. But right now I can only do 30 frames a second. I'm fine because it's web, and once the compression comes in, it really doesn't make that much of a difference if it's higher or lower. You want to be as high as possible in your frame rate and kilobits per second. So if you need to mix down, it doesn't look like watercolor painting out there. So, and then of course the average bit rate, like I said, I have it at 3,500 kilobits per second. I've been meaning to push it up to see if this computer will do better than 3,500, but I like to keep it there. You do have an option down here that says limit peak bit rate, which means that if it tries to go past 3,500 kilobits per second, it'll stop it there. But then we have the packetizer, which we goes up here and we say, hey, the packet limit, when you go to record, you record at 3,500 bytes a packet. So every time you send a packet, or every time that something that the film is created, it creates it in these 3,500 byte packets, 3,500 byte packets, and then it pushes it into the main video. But so when it's all done, it puts it all together. It's kind of like taking pieces of a puzzle out to put it back together in the end. So I have it set relatively low. Once again, I like to play with the settings, push it up a little bit more, see what the computer can do. But right now, I know that that's satisfactory for what I do and how it works. So, of course, once again, I have it set as a H.264 video, but I can definitely set it to QuickTime if need be. On the audio side, I have MPEG-4 audio at 44.1 kilohertz, running 16-bit. I can choose 8-bit or 16-bit. I don't know if you can go up to 24-bit. That's all this computer says. So mono or stereo, and of course the packetizer for audio is also there too. So I would have 1,400 bytes of puzzle pieces going into the audio on that. So. And I've been, like I said, I've been thinking about pushing that one up too, but I have to do some tests before that I do that. So, the other one, we have LAN over here. That's pretty much the same thing. And then, of course, if we want to save everything that we did or create a preset. So let's say some video you want to do as 4:3, and some videos you want to do as 16:9, 720p. Then you save the preset and you give it a name, and then you can go from there and create new presets. So just some different options there, but nothing different from there. So that's basically how you set up the frame. So when it's recording, when it's broadcasting, it will do that at that resolution, at that bit rate, so you get the best quality possible. Now what we're going to do is we're going to switch gears here, and I'm going to show you what you need to do to get it out on the internet live as you're going, or recording as I'm doing right now. For that, we're going over to broadcast. I had to think about that for a second. And go over to broadcast settings. Now, of course, it's telling me that it's since I'm recording, it might be a little bit cautious. So I'll hit OK there. Now, as you can see, I have two parts set up. On my broadcast, I have where I can record to the disk, and then I have one where I can do a Ustream to the Tech Podcast Network. Excuse me. So, and when it records, as you can see, it records at a rate of 36 kilobits per second. But when it streams at a rate of 496 kilobits per second, because it's running at flash medium bandwidth. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a new one, so we don't mess with anything. And we're just going to go down the settings. Oops, that's the one I want. We choose which one we want, whether it be on the flash side or whether it be on the LAN side. In this case, we're going to set up a Ustream. So we're going to say flash 16:9. Our destination is going to be to one of these different types of options. You can do an RTMP flash server, a FreedoCast, Justin.tv, Limelight, Ustream, Livestream, Brightcove, Sermon.net, or you can record to disk. We'll say Ustream. Now, as you can see, it added the Ustream options to that, because that's the definite destination is Ustream. If I chose Justin TV, as you can see, Justin.tv, it changes that too. So we'll go Ustream here. Now, with Justin TV, you just basically put in a username and it can start recording. With Ustream, it's a little bit different. You need to have your exact channel. Now, my channel is Geekazine, and my username is Geekazine. So I put that stuff in there, and I hit the generate RTMP, and it's asking for the Ustream password. If I put in the Ustream password, it has generated an RTMP, so it can get ready to broadcast the video to Ustream. And same thing with Justin. Once I put in all the credentials, username, password, it will then create a connection between the two. So now I can, I'm going to cancel that because I don't want to mess with my recording. But now if I go to broadcast, I go to stop broadcast, it would actually show up both of these to start. And I could start multiple copies depending on how good my internet bandwidth is. I could do like 2 or 3 different Ustream channels, or Justin TV, or one to Ustream, one to Livestream, one to Justin TV. A lot of people do this. A lot of people use Wirecast as a back end thing. They don't do all their scene switching in here. Like, they don't put their lower thirds like that. They use like a TriCaster or something like that. But then they'll go to Wirecast to actually do the stream to Ustream, to Justin.tv, to Livestream and stuff like that. So this will just be a machine that captures the video and then pushes it along to some of these other things. So if you're watching web TV, Chris Perillo is a good example. He might use Wirecast as a back end to just push it up to Ustream, to push it up to Livestream, and maybe soon YouTube, maybe soon some other options. So stop recording. As you can see, the my movie is starting. I don't want to click on that because then I can stop everything. Don't want to do that. And then we have, of course, the external display output. If I had another computer monitor hooked up to this computer, I could preview everything through that computer monitor, which would be a pretty nice little feature to have. I could have actually set it up to my flat screen, but I decided not to. Anyway, the whole point is that's basically how you do it. You set up your broadcast settings. Once again, we'll go here. You create a new one by hitting the plus. You go into your encoder preset, whether you want it to be H.264 or flash. You choose your destination, whether it record to disk, whether you're going a multicast, a unicast, you're going to Ustream, you're going to Justin TV, so on and so forth. One thing to note, if you're watching this, you're seeing the H.264 and you hit that drop down, you don't see Ustream, you don't see Justin TV. You see a different set of options. You have to set this to flash of some sort, and then you'll get the option to go to Justin, to Limelight, to Ustream, so on and so forth. So, but anyway, you make that change. You put in the information that it's asking for, and in this case, it says recorded disk, and it says, well, what do you want it for the location for the files, and what do you want for the name, and do you want it to be a type of a flash or MPEG controller. So once again, I'm not going to save that. I'm going to cancel that out, and then really all there's left to do is to go in here. I'm just going to bring this over just a little bit so you can see the corner without trying to do a screen repeat. As you can see, we have the broadcast option, we have the record option. You can go up to broadcast and say start from here, but you can also just hit one of these two buttons. And as you can see, the record button's going because there's a blue arrow up there. If the broadcast button was going, you would actually see some blue rings around the satellite dish, and that says that you're broadcasting. There is one other thing that you have to do if you use Ustream, and that's simply, once you've started the broadcast, you have to go into a browser, and you have to call up Ustream, and then you have to say, I want to start a live recording. And then it brings up that window like Ustream normally does. and then you have to hit the record button. If you want Ustream to record your video, you have to take that extra step. You won't be able to record it. Ustream will just be a instant on, instant off situation at that point. But if you want to record it from Ustream, you'll have to go into a browser, and I highly recommend going into a Firefox browser, because if you use Chrome, it's questionable at times. But you go into a Firefox browser, you go to Ustream, you hit the broadcast live now, and it brings up that window, and all you have to do is hit record. It should already be streaming. You'll see the preview window will actually show you, maybe in a delay, but it'll still show you. And then you hit the record button, and it'll start the recording. Of course, I don't record from Ustream. I broadcast from Ustream. I do a record every now and then, but the reality is I want to record this video. This is first and foremost what I'm got on the disc. I can always re-push it up to Ustream later, or push it up on my other sites, but this has got to take precedence in the video and stuff like that. So, and that's basically it for this part. Part 3 of Wirecast. Tomorrow we're gonna do a little bit more. We're gonna talk a little bit more about the interface, and we're gonna do some cool stuff. And I'm gonna show you a couple cool new options that you can do with Wirecast to make your production a little bit easier, a little bit cooler, and go from there. So my name is Jeffrey Powers. If you want to get a hold of me, let's see if we can get this. There we go. Jeffrey Powers, Twitter me, Geekazine. Of course, you can get me at geekazine@gmail.com. If you have any questions, feel free to send them my way at geekazine@gmail.com. All right, well, that does it for this episode, this part of the 5-part series. Thanks a lot for watching. My name is Jeffrey Powers. Go over to geekazine.com for all your questions, all your comments, and find out all the cool shows that are going on, including the Day in Tech History, which is a 7-day-a-week podcast, the 5 tech things you should know about, and, of course, Geek Smack. So thanks again, and we will see you next time for the part 4 of this series on Wirecast. Take care.